Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of AI Interconnect, the show where we dive deep with the innovators, the strategists, reshaping industries with AI and data driven tools. And today I'm joined by Martin Ostermann, managing partner at Predium. They are helping real estate investors, developers, and urban planners make smarter AI enabled decisions across Europe and North America. Martin, great to have you here. How have you been doing?
Great, Laurent. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. Happy to have this chat today. I'm doing great. Thank you.
Fantastic, fantastic. Yeah, I'm very, very happy. And let's start with your story. Tell us about your journey from luxury hospitality and hotel development to the world of real estate analytics and prop tech.
Great. Yeah. Good question. I mean, it's been so long. I don't know if I remember all the details, but I'll try my best.
Fantastic.
uh, Look, I come from a fairly humble background in the countryside in Germany, so I never had much to do in my early days with luxury hospitality or all the big great things that we know from the world today when it comes to traveling, luxury real estate, vacation homes, like those type of things was always a very foreign thing as I was growing up. But it was something that because I didn't have it in my day to day life, I was always very curious about and very interested in. And fast forward several decades, I found myself moving to North America to go to university specifically for hospitality management, and I got exposed there to a lot of the big international hotel brands and luxury brands and vacation homes, and the things that we have in Europe as well, in Switzerland and Austria and France, all over Europe, but in the US they do it even on a bigger style with Aspen and all these very, very high end vacation resorts in the Caribbean and in Mexico and Florida and so on and so forth. So my eyes were open to a completely different world than what I knew growing up, and sparked a lot of interest, a lot of curiosity to get more involved in this. So I did my degree. I worked with several of the big luxury brand operators in the hotel world. Traveled around a lot. Got exposed and learned a lot about these projects and what the philosophies are. And a lot of these brands that you see today that have hundreds, if not thousands, of hotels over 30 years ago weren't as big. They were still more in the strategic growth phase. And when I was involved with them, I got to learn a lot about the strategy, where their vision was that they would go eventually. And at that point, even though I might be giving my age away a little bit, but internet was not yet the big topic. People were still kind of using email to communicate better than with phone calls and with faxes. But where we are today with AI and with the technology and the processing power and the storage and how tech has been involved in everything from fintech to prop tech to all of these things at the time. And even though it's not that long ago, 20, 30 years ago, we were by no means at the same point in time with technology. I remember in college, one of my classes, I think it was a technology class actually, Skype had just been announced. And that's ironic because just this year, Skype was discontinued, right? So everyone was freaking out saying, oh my God, all the meetings and people flying to hotels and conference centers and everything, it's all going to die. It's all going to go away because we now have a way to have exactly this, what we're doing today, a video call, a video meeting with many people. And and I was shocked. I was like, this is never going to happen. This is silly. It's probably going to help us communicate more, better, connect the world, but it's still going to get us to travel and to connect and to be in big groups for meetings. And those things shape the way we build real estate, right? I mean, it's very important to know if you need 2,000 square meters or 20,000 square feet of meeting space and a certain number of rooms or a certain type of rooms, or you need less. And technology had a massive play in this. So back to my early days, I found myself in the US learning a lot about these things because I didn't come from that environment. But then I realized, because if you start from scratch, if you absorb it differently, you're not coming in with certain already preconceived notions. And that helped me a lot, just be very open-minded and very flexible with what I was what was presented to me, what was happening in the world around me, and how fast things started to happen once the internet and started really becoming an essential part of it all. Fast forward, I did that for about 10 years or so. And then I found myself in a very interesting situation to have an opportunity to move to Dubai in early 2000, before the financial crisis. But also when Dubai was, not just from a technological point of view, but from even a real estate point of view, exploding. They were building massive luxury developments. They still are now doing the same thing very successfully. But when I first arrived there, it was, even from the big world in North America, I was in Houston, Texas. Even from there, Dubai was a whole nother level. It was almost like a different planet. The sheer quality and quantity, probably a bit more in the early days than the quality, of luxury hotels, residential developments, etc., that they were building was out of this world. It was just a shock to me. It was, I've never seen so much happening at the same time. And ironically, this is, I thought about this the other day when you invited me to join you on the discussion today. Ironically, I went from the States with my luxury hospitality real estate background to Dubai, where this was in explosive mode, with a technology company, not even with a real estate company. And it was through a relationship I had in the States, and they were looking for somebody who could help them tap into the ever-growing hospitality industry and luxury real estate industry in Dubai, but figuring out internally how these routers and switches and technological protocols and what have you, how that would be best created, structured, strategized to serve that heavily growing industry in luxury real estate and hospitality in such a fast moving market like Dubai. So I did that for about a year, but then I realized I'm not that great with technology. I'm not a tech salesperson. They wanted me to take a little bit of a different approach, more on the sales side than on the strategic side. And I went back to hospitality and luxury real estate in the Middle East. My 1 year contract with this technology firm turned into me spending 10 years in Dubai in the end, starting Pridium, my company there in 2010, right after the financial crisis. And that's where really everything started. Because while from 2006 to 2008, Dubai was on a rocket ship fast track, right? I mean, you have never seen things happen so quickly, so extraordinarily big in scale and volume and everything than during that time there. And then when the global financial crisis hit, just like that high speed came to a very, very screeching halt. And it had a huge impact on the market in Dubai. Short term, luckily, which nobody knew at the time how long it would last. But what I realized out of that was there was a need, a demand for looking at the industry, looking at real estate with a different set of glasses, with a different lens, a different perspective. And I had a partner who came from the financial world. So we combined our thinking and we combined our understanding of the market, or at least what we thought the market was missing with this impact of the global financial disruption, into creating Predium. And Predium stands for, well, it was a bit of a joke, but we were looking for a word that is clean, that has no connotation to anything else, like, everyone using colors and rocks and stones and whatever for their company names. We wanted to stay very clean on a neutral word. And one word that always stuck to our mind when we started the company was prudent. We wanted to be prudent. Nobody took a very detail-oriented, diligent, prudent, very traditional kind of European. You flip over everything 15 times before you make a decision. Sometimes that's not a great thing, but we wanted to be more prudent. So that's where the first letter came from. And then we came up with prudent real estate development, investment, and asset management. And if you take every first letter, it spells Predium. And when we looked online and nothing else was associated with it, that was the birth of the company. But as a side note, the real context and why this was so important to us was we were in a market that was moving so fast, but it was very, very fragmented. because they were constructing on one side, but they still were at the very, very early stages of government regulations when it comes to land ownership, construction, development guidelines and approvals and processes and everything. And very, very importantly, the financial sector behind it, because you need money to build these ridiculous, big, luxurious projects. And the financial sector was in its very, very early stages as well, because they have this Sharia compliant law, religious, back in the days, tie to how lending works and how underwriting works and how due diligence works and everything. And while you had big international institutions and banks and whatever already present in the market, and the global sovereign wealth funds for Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, all being set up, it was still early days. And we were in a very, very unique situation, because we had this collapse financially globally, which gave Dubai an opportunity to figure out what the rest of the world has done wrong, what led to that event, while the rest of the world was figuring it out as well. But they could, at that point, not even make the same mistakes. They could prepare themselves for not even making those mistakes ever in the future, because this was the perfect case study. The reason why I'm saying all this is we were in an extremely unique and fortunate situation at that time, 2009, 2010 in Dubai, to see all that happening real time in front of our eyes, day to day, minute to minute. And that's what we shaped our company around. We said we'll take a completely different approach to real estate, and in particularly luxury hospitality real estate. Not the real estate you need to live in every day, but the real estate you like to have for vacation, for investments, for any kind of other purposes than your primary residence. And that's how it really all started. That's where it came from. Sorry, it was a little bit of a longer story here.
No, no, I really love it. This is a story of. I recognize a little bit myself as because I mean, you consider yourself as an expat, no? You're German of origin. You ended up in the States. I did the same. You were based in Houston. You took your opportunity in Dubai, and I love all this story. This is very insightful, and right. Tell us about the Predium origin story. How did you how do you describe what Predium does in a sentence or two to someone new? What specific problem are you solving to for investors, developers, or city planners?
Okay. So what we started with was advisory, simple real estate hospitality advisory, things like feasibility studies, master planning. We did a lot of work with the governments, like you said, urban planners, with the government in the Middle East, because a lot of these master planned big communities did not exist yet. They were in a very early ideation phase from somebody high up that said, okay, this whole island here, or we're building a whole new island, or we're shaping something like a palm tree in the water, and we want to extend certain areas of the location into mixed use residential hospitality communities. But how do we do this? Where do we start? So the early days of Pridium was all around creating these projects, advising investors, making sure like analyzing all the financial aspects of it, the market studies, that it's viable, that it's feasible, that it can be financed, that it complies with not just the local regulations, but also the vision of the marketplace that we were in at the time in the Middle East, not just Dubai, but all over the GCC region, and even into the African market as well. And so we did a lot of that consulting work for many years over there. In parallel to that, two things happened. One, I utilized a long-standing relationship with a hotel operator out of Europe who asked to have some strategic help in the region to grow their company. So I was able to, it allowed me, and I was fortunate enough to find myself in a position where I could understand what the local market is looking for, and also what international brands are looking for, and be right in the middle and combine that into my day-to-day activities. So it was still advisory, it was still representation, but on the strategic level, helping one side, the international market, to come into the local market and the local market to become more international. And it was a lot of fun. I mean, it was very much a learning experience because you dealt with different cultures, with different expectations, with different financing rules, with the international company that had already very structured and clear ideas of what they want to do, and then the local market that was very open. So it was advisory, mostly consulting that we did at the time. But very quickly we realized there's more to this, and we found ourselves being asked more and more, how do we finance these projects? Who are the investors? Where's the money coming from? How can we sell the real estate that we're planning on building to the end user? And so we got involved because also my founding partner at the time was came from the institutional financing world, and specifically for this asset class of hospitality real estate. So we started doing a lot of work around that subject matter as well, around getting people, the money side, and the people who built this structure, infrastructure, in terms of urban planning, in terms of individual hotels or managed branded residences, etc., to bring them together and to create financially viable and successful projects. And that's what we've been doing pretty much ever since, until, well, still doing it today, to be honest with you, but with a different twist on it.
Okay, I love it. How how does AI or data fit into the value proposition today for you?
I mean, amazing question. AI obviously has taken over everyone's world, whether it's just finding a quick answer on ChatGPT for a question, or whether it's really integrated into your day to day business. Data is probably the bigger aspect behind it, because what is AI? It's a learning machine algorithm that processes data. But data for us has been extremely important, always will be. Um, and I remember one of the funniest stories, because Dubai was one thing, there was a lot of stuff happening. But then when you went into smaller markets, like some of the villages in Saudi Arabia, or even in Qatar, Oman, or these countries that were not as much developed at the time already as Dubai, for example, and you want to know how much demand or supply is in a market, you don't have access to the tools that you had in the US, that even 10 years before, where, because of the tax system, everything is public information. Or even if you might have to buy a subscription to something, you can get access to records and data for decades. And you can evaluate trends, and you can project trends and what have you. You have to imagine that we were in a market that, first of all, doesn't have a tax structure. So therefore, there is no public record of people spending money or developing something. So we literally had to go sometimes to places at night to watch and count how many lights in a building were on. And you do that several times in a row just to get an average. But that's data, right? That's the manual, non-technological version of data. You're literally sitting in your car in a parking lot waiting for hours, and you count lights coming on, you count lights going off, which now, okay, out of this building has 100 rooms, 30 lights were on. That means they have about 30% occupancy tonight. That's, without making this up, this is how we collected data. And we're talking about 20 years ago, not very long ago. The internet already existed, but the data was not collected and processed the way we are used to it today. And for us, it's been almost whiplash to how fast and how much volume of data has been consolidated, and in what capacities it can be recalled through AI, through the internet, and analyzed. And the big shift, and the very important shift for us that helps us do amazing things, is we have gone really from what I call a static data world, where data is one point in time, one aspect, to a real-time contextual intelligence, right? I can today, almost anywhere and everywhere, find an answer for how is this hotel performing? How is this market doing? What's missing in this market? What have you? Without spending weeks and multiple people running around, sitting in one location, waiting for one event. This is static. The real time is just like the minute chart if you're a day trader and you see everything moving by the minute or by the second even. And that's one of the biggest impacts that I would say the way data and particularly AI has evolved for our industry, because it gives us so much insight, so much opportunity to be adaptive, predictive, etc. I mean, this goes down not that just to market analysis and what's best for a local market. This goes down to building management, building maintenance. You can predict behavior of people because every light switch, every shower head, every parking lot barrier, restaurant, you name it, minibar, even everything is connected and tracked. And that data, when you analyze it appropriately, but that was a big gap from when the data collection started. I mean, that's definitely a few decades old. But how do we process this data and what do we tell the data, so to speak, that we want to know from it? It's the old principle of garbage in, garbage out, right? I mean, if you just have a big pile of data, but you don't have a right question to ask, you're never going to get a good answer. With AI, that has changed because now we can just literally answer and say, hey, ask AI the question and say, hey, if you access this data set, what does it mean? What do we need to know if we want to have this outcome? And sure, it's in the early stages. We have to sanity check it. We have to make sure that it's validated and everything. But even that, you can run AI results against AI results and get to a still fairly good mix. We do that. We do that a lot, and that's very, very helpful.
Okay, fantastic. How did you validate that there was a need for this kind of consulting and insights platform, which is Predium?
Well, the need has always been there, simply because the people that or the institutions that finance these type of projects, they've always needed answers and data to show them this is potentially profitable. In the end, it's down to risk analysis. It comes down to somebody saying, you want $100 million from me? How likely am I getting my money back? And how much am I making with that investment? How risky is it? And how much is my return? And that can only be, well, not only, that can be quantified. And then there is a human element to it. And the human element is built on experience and on long-term factors of, as silly as it sounds sometimes, but gut feeling. You know, somebody with 50 years of experience in a market, their instinct or intuition about a certain thing that could happen can very well validate the vast amounts of data that we have processed in a matter of seconds today, or even less than that. But the need for it has always been there. As long, and it's very interesting you asked this question, because I think and I feel we're getting to a point in time where and we started doing this with AI as well, where the underwriting, the traditional underwriting, where somebody on the financial side is sitting down and analyzing and studying financial models and projections and long reports of market studies and historic trends and what does somebody say these historic trends mean for the future and so on and so forth. Today, the only reason that matters is because you're moving traditional money, which is a tool and a means to exchange against something else that holds a certain value. You're moving that traditional money, let's say, €1 or $1 that historically is secured and safe by gold or any other valuable resources, into real estate, which is also a resource and also holds a certain amount of value, but you're speculating in a way that value will grow, and that value is more than what your current paper digital number on the screen is, that you're moving from one asset to another effectively in a very traditional way. And that speculation, you need to be as informed as possible. So that's where that need and that demand came from, that we saw in the consulting world, to say, okay, if we can answer these questions, if we can collect this data, if we can analyze this data, if we can give people confidence that this is the right project, this is the wrong project, this has so much return, this has higher risk, this has lower risk, and here are the reasons why. They are all data driven. With that approach, we can serve the clients on both sides. The investors, the financiers, the banks, the institutions, family offices, they will feel, yeah, we have enough information to make our decision, and the developer in the end will get the money if they make the decision to invest in the project. And we are the facilitator in the middle, so to speak, that we get that we have as our business model. But that's changing. We feel and we see that changing because we have two trends developing in parallel right now, and that's why this joining you on this conversation was very, very interesting to me. Because one thing happened in the last almost similar amount of time with internet coming on and becoming a bit more of a global tool for everyone to use, is that the traditional form of money and transactions is changing, as we know. I know we're talking about prop tech today, but fintech has been around for quite a long time now as well, considered. And having, for us, we have a little saying in the company when we talk about this thing. It's like, what's prop tech, what's fintech? For us, if prop tech and fintech have a baby, we call it purpose tech. It's the technology that serves the purpose, right? So the financial aspect of the tech side for us is critical because it does change how the risk assessment and the moving value represented through traditional money or currency from one asset to another asset and then back with an increased value. That's changing completely with the blockchain, with crypto, with tokens, with all these technology-driven aspects that have a big impact on the financial world. It's changing in the sense of, eventually, we believe, I might be completely wrong with this, but eventually, I think between AI and fintech, the money will make its own decision of where it's best placed in a way of how it can evolve and how it can grow in the best way. Just like AI is going to make a lot of decisions because let's face it, we humans were lazy. We like to have as much help and support as we can get, so we don't have to rely on ourselves and ultimately blame ourselves for making the wrong decision. That fear of getting it wrong is so strong that we say, well, if somebody has no feelings, they make a better decision. And we see the trends already really, really, really vividly in your face and active in the world, how fintech and prop tech are getting very, very close together. We're actively working on this ourselves. We're building a tokenized fractional real estate platform that allows people ultimately to use virtual currency to buy smaller shares of luxury assets that they would have not typically have access to, that are in the hospitality vacation home world. But that's just the transaction side of it, right? To get there, we have to still analyze a huge amount of data and get to make decisions that are not just driven on, okay, one Bitcoin or one crypto dollar of whatever denomination is worth so much and we're building this real estate. It's much more emotional than that. And that's what I find extremely intriguing about this world. You have on one side the non-emotional algorithms, it's called AI, and blockchain, which has nothing to do with the traditional banking system anymore because it's completely transparent, completely secure, etc., and so on and so forth. But it's still uncomfortable for people. You still have the emotional side as long as you have people. And the same is true for the type of real estate that we at Pridium are working with, which is emotional real estate. We're not talking about your shelter that you need to have a roof over your head and raise your family in and hide from the storm or from the heat. We're talking about a vacation home. We're talking about luxury. We're talking about, places you want to visit and stay there with a lot of comfort. But two things are important there. Those decisions you don't necessarily or not only make based on financial returns. Those decisions you make based on how you feel in most cases. Why are you buying a villa in Bali and not in in the Bahamas, for example? There's something that drives you. The Bahamas deal might be more financially viable, but somehow you're driven to Bali. So you're going to buy something there. Or why buy in St. Moritz and not in Aspen? They're both ski resorts. They're both very fancy. They're both very exclusive, very expensive. But what drives you to buy in one or the other? Your friends are out there. Your family likes it better. You have so many emotional drivers behind it. And now the question is, how do you combine the two, right? And I think the technology aspect that now translates into what's called prop tech, and the technology aspect on the money, the fintech, are very, very interesting because, like I said earlier, when you put them together, and as we call it, purpose tech comes out of it, you fulfill the purpose. You give people a purpose, a reason why they buy something in a certain place or they invest in a certain place. They might not call it an investment, but it's a very simple, very clean, very structured, very value driven and safe approach to do that now, which we don't really haven't had until today in this world of real estate investments. And that's where the huge change is coming in for us to shift from what I mentioned earlier, this traditional way of consulting and data analysis and supplying answers to help somebody make a better educated decision of risk and reward with their investment or what they build or develop, to just being part of a world that facilitates the purpose of what people want in this life. And that's really it.
Yeah, I really love it because I'm very much into or in my early years or early life. I used to be trading the market and very involved in financial. Then I hear you very well. Then you consider yourself more as a fintech or a prop tech, and both of it. But you're a consultant for this big firm. But it's the trend changed, and I love all your insight. I learn a lot, and I always think uh, it's also important to talk about the tough parts and what have what have been the biggest challenges for you in building Predium.
Great question. I mean, look, like every startup, effectively, the challenge is that you're competing in a pretty big market. You're competing with big international brand names. You're competing with um, people that have done it for longer than you, that are better known in a certain market. And it's not so much what you offer and what you can do and what the experience and the skill set that you have is. You need that. That's the foundation. But it's your network and it's the trust that you can build with people and the relationships that you have established. Why would somebody hire Predium to do a study or advise them versus another big five consulting firm in the world? And a lot of times it comes down to the human aspect, the element of it, the trust, the relationships. And I've prioritized that a lot over the years, is to, especially in the markets like Dubai that are very, very, or the Middle East in particular, that's very people focused. That's very much around culture, around how you treat each other, family values, these kind of stuff, compared to other markets like the US, which is very corporate and very data driven and very performance driven, and so on and so forth. And you have a bit of a challenge today, I see, in many aspects of that sector, which is that people start using AI, especially when you look at the recruitment world, for example, to filter potential candidates that might be useful as let's say, us as a consultant to a big development company. If the big development company is using a very straightforward, simple mechanism to filter out, Pridium may not make the cut. We might be better qualified. We might be more diligent, more loyal. You probably get more value for the money you spend with us than with another big company. But there's certain criteria that only another big company can fulfill that won't even allow us to be in front of those people unless we have a relationship, unless I know the decision maker. Unless we've met somewhere before and we had a good conversation, there's some touch point that is still the human element. And for us, that's extremely important, not just on that example now of what is our challenge of being hired versus others. Our challenge is that the visibility of what we do is only as good as the relationships that we have, only as good as the people we know. Sure, there's LinkedIn and there's the internet, and you can go on social media. And obviously, there's a reason why I'm on your podcast, because it increases visibility, and it's a great a topic to talk about somebody who has made it their life mission to explore it further and learn from it further and grow a business around it. I'm very appreciative of that, and I think it's a very beneficial way for both of us to have this conversation, and for others that listen to the podcast ultimately to learn something from it. That's the whole point of it, right? But all that means you establish authority, you establish credibility, you grow your network, you expand. And we are extremely fortunate, all of us, to live in this world today where, with fairly simple, affordable tools, you can be out there educating the world about a subject matter that you're passionate about. I can share experiences and knowledge and thoughts and ideas through that channel. Back in the days, this was limited to universities and to educational institutions that were restrictive, and who could even get in the door or not, and how much it was to participate and get a degree and all these kind of things. But that is changing dramatically, and for us, that's a challenge as much as an opportunity.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. I love it. It's definitely trust is so critical in this space. I mean, especially as a consultant, and you're giving client advice that affects multi-million-dollar decisions. Then, um, how do you build and maintain that credibility? Yeah?
The only way you can do this is with performance, right? Performance, not just in the ultimate result and outcome, but performance in delivering what you say you do. It could be as simple as, you're committing to a meeting or a call and you're not late. You show up, but you do that consistently. You become reliable, which ultimately, if you have that habit of doing these kind of things reliably, you're going to produce most likely the right outcome and the right results, and are able to establish credibility in your ultimate delivery, not just the performance along the way, but the delivery in the end. If somebody says, "Well, I hired Predium, and they never showed up for the calls, they only told me a few nice things, and then they were unavailable, and we never got a result," I'm probably not going to get another client ever again. But if along the way we deliver, we build that trust, put in to what it takes to build that trust, and ultimately also deliver the results for it, then we have established that credibility where people will refer you, people will tell you that was a great experience. And we do two things, right? I mean, we do the advisory on one side, but with the new platform that we're now working on to develop, we will also be providing the transactional aspect. We will be able to raise the money directly to invest in these projects directly,
Oh.
which that becomes a whole nother play in this world, because no project happens without the investment or without the money. And once we have that piece of the puzzle included in the overall offering, that's going to make it even, I would say, more complex, but easier to deliver the results, because now we increase the value chain. We help establish what the right project should look like. Then we help you figure out how to do that. And ultimately, we're bringing the money to make it happen. So the result will be kind of more in our control in a way, and more influenced by us. Not in every case, not every project will fit on the platform or will benefit from it. So we have to be somewhat selective there. What is pure consulting or advisory engagement? Where is advisory just one step of 3, 4 steps to take to get to the end result?
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely. I mean, it's yeah, there's so many challenges. That could be also education and building new tech, or scaling across different markets, because I mean, you're also working on in Europe and North America with different data standards, for example, and I'm sure another challenge is the complexity of inconsistent data sources. But I love to move forward to one thing you talk about is the intersection of human capital and AI. Can you unpack what that means to our listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, human capital, what does that mean? What is that? We as a human, we go on vacation. Let's take an example, and we stay in a hotel. From the day we make a booking at home on our computer or traditionally in a travel agency to the day to long after we come back home in today's day and age and we share our experience on social media, us as humans are extremely valuable to that project, to what the success of that project means. Because if we're having a bad experience, it's probably going to impact the project negatively. If we're having a great experience, or if the project is able to deliver a great experience, it's going to impact it in a positive way. And the intersection between that aspect of us as humans, and I'm only now talking about one aspect, which is us being a guest. There's obviously the employees, there's the facilitators, there's people that build, that construct. There's so many other aspects of it, but they're very similar in a way that with the interaction of the very fast ability to process data through AI now, we can close a gap of realizing that value, of understanding the human capital aspect, and turning it into basically turning a project into a living system instead of before just being brick and mortar that somebody visited and then some other person had to maintain it and so on and so forth. That's still there, but every step of the way that we take, and in some countries it's scary how much data can be collected with surveillance and cameras and even the noise levels in the lobby. I mean, whatever you want to measure, you can measure these days if it's legally allowed. And some people do it even if it's not allowed. But the big thing is a lot of companies, a lot of projects, so project owners, or even the real estate itself sits on an extraordinary amount of unused data. They sit on literally so much data they don't know what to do with. But that's pure value. Because if you know, and there's an interesting example, and I don't want to mix it up now, but it's a technology company as well. No, it's actually a car manufacturer, I believe, in China, who's building a completely data driven city. They're building real
Uh-huh.
estate where everything is tracked, monitored, analyzed, and immediately given back to you, given back to the individual. Of course, it's obviously central. This is a test. This is a trial, a lab experiment, effectively for now. But the street you walk in, the mirror you look in, the everything you do on the daily life or on the daily aspect of your life is somehow being monitored and analyzed. Now, a lot of people will say, "Oh my God, this is horrible. I don't. This is too much for me. This is bad. I don't. I don't ever want to live in an environment like that." And I totally get it. And I'm not promoting one or the other. All I'm saying is that for us in our business, particularly, having the ability to analyze the data that has already been collected. I mean, back in the days, it was manually, when somebody signs in, or this, you go to a fancy French restaurant and they have the guest book in the lobby, right? Or in the reception. You come in and there's a page, somebody writes a page of how amazing the experience was. What is that? That's data. Well, what do people do with that data? And like I said earlier, it was static and now it's become completely interactive, and creating, pulling out that or building that bridge between the human aspect and the technology that can instantly assess that and make changes accordingly. Right? There's no reason why, going back to my example, when you visit a hotel or a resort, let's say you go with your family to the south of France and you stay somewhere in a nice resort for 1 week, and something happens on the first day or the second day at check-in. There's no need why, and this happened a lot and still happens, shockingly, but why in the past your whole week of vacation has a bad taste, You leave, you may have some very nice experiences and dinners and excursions and time at the beach and at the pool with your family and all that for the remaining of your stay. But the one thing you remember and you tell your friends when they say, "How was your vacation?" It's like, "Oh my God, can you believe they were rude when I checked in?" Right? I mean, that's as humans, we go back to remembering the negative thing. You might have had 10 positive things, but your first, most likely, I mean, maybe I'm the negative person, I'm not, but many people will have that reaction. And this is, there's studies done where you can see that. But what if we can now, the building itself, sure, it comes back to a person who sets the rules and gives other people the authority to react on it and whatever. But what if all of a sudden that is tracked, that is analyzed, that is benchmarked against you as an individual, not you as one of thousands of people that come to this hotel every day, every year, but you as an individual in that one moment. And you go to dinner and then you come home from dinner and there's a voice. Let's make it super simple. And there is a greeting message on your phone. If you even still have a phone in the room, if not, it's a WhatsApp message on your personal cell phone or on the screen in the room, however the place is set up with technology. And it says, Mr. Laurent, we apologize for the small hiccup earlier. We would love to give you 50% off in the spa tomorrow to make up for it, with a smiley face. I don't know, whatever. I'm making some stuff up,
Yeah.
right? Would you not feel better about that? But that's the instant bridge between the human capital and the AI integration. And it's just probably the most basic and simplest example that I can think of right now. But it translates through everything. And we have so much opportunity today with that bridge to create incredible positive impact on experiences, on the users, on the guests, on the investors, everything, which ultimately make the projects more valuable and more interesting to investors. And then it becomes a cycle and it goes around. And especially when we're now talking about making this, otherwise, like you said earlier, hundreds of millions of dollars of projects accessible to everyone. There's examples now how multi-million dollar projects get sold out, get invested in fully within minutes through tokens and AI and whatever. And people buy these for $500, $800, $1,000. They're not billionaires or millionaires that invest in these big hotels. They're individuals. They're the people who ultimately going to stay there for one night, for 1 week, for whatever. They now have access to it. And that's creating a completely different aspect of a circular economy in the investment, finance, and user world. And that makes it even more important than ever before that we, collect the data, which we're doing anyway, but be very structured in what data we collect, why we collect it, what we do with it, and how we use it to create a positive value and impact.
Yeah, I love it. It's a perfect transition. You also mentioned that you focus on sustainability and what you call the circular economy, or I mean, what we call circular economy, especially around a fractional and share leisure real estate, which is so great idea to allow everybody to take a piece of it and enjoy. And I'd like to dive into that. And how do you see AI and prop tech investment tools, including things like tokenization, as you mentioned, supporting more sustainable and circular models?
Very simply, without it, it's almost impossible to do it. The only thing is we have to be, and I want to be a little bit careful up front because I know there will be a lot of people saying, yes, but AI is not sustainable, environmentally not sustainable. There's so many studies out how much water and energy it uses to just run one ChatGPT search that you're asking ChatGPT where you should take your car to get the best price on your new brakes or something. So I want to be cautious, at least to acknowledge that I'm aware that there is a counterbalance to the sustainability impact. But I want to look at it from the same perspective and say, we can solve that. We're working on this with clean energy solutions, with gray water recycling. The world will evolve, and will most likely find solutions to run it with the least impact possible, because the outcome, to answer your question, of what that can do to create better results, not just how profitable a hotel is. I see that. I agree that that's a very single-minded or one-sided approach to it. I'm not just here to promote profit and making more money and who cares about the environment. The opposite is true. For us, we're so interested and so excited about these tools that are coming about, because they allow us in those projects and developers and investors in the projects to be more conscious of what is going on in the environment. And the circular economy is one that's in particular very, very interesting. We're much less focused on building as many new resorts or properties as we can, as in if we use the traditional model with clothes or with whatever in the secondary market, in the upcycling of the existing inventory that's there, or at least if you're building the new inventory, that it has a function and a mechanism built in that gives people a way to use it in a less negative impact on the planet method on multiple levels. Circular economy is very simple. Traditional real estate is pretty linear. It's like a straight line, right? We build it, we sell it, we use it. At some point, it gets destroyed and rebuilt. It's just one directional. In a circular model, we design it already in the early stages to be reused, to be shared, to basically have its own version of longevity. That alone makes it much more sustainable in a big picture. Example, you own a vacation home in the south of France. Just you and your family own the whole thing. You go there 4 weeks in the summer, you go there 2 weeks in the fall, you go there 2 weeks in the spring. The rest of the time you put it on Airbnb. We can say that's circular because you're sharing it, but a lot of people are not doing that. Why? Because these short-term rental programs and many other options that are available have two problems. One, they are not very well regulated, and governments and local authorities don't really like it. As we know in Paris and in many other cities in the world, they're being scrutinized for what they are, and the fact that they're not that well regulated. So it's not a sustainable, long-term, or reliable tool. Secondly, if you own we're not talking about small places, but if you own a vacation home, if you are privileged enough or fortunate enough to have one of those pieces of real estate, means you have more than one house or apartment or something. And if you're in that position, many times you don't want people to stay in your house that you worked so hard for and put so much effort into, or share so many experiences with your family and so on and so forth. You'd rather leave it empty than letting a stranger, a foreigner, not a foreigner, but a stranger, a person you don't know that's foreign to you and your standards, just use your house. And those are the biggest hurdles to overcome in the circular economy model. And we work very closely with partners who have overcome that. And that's only possible with technology, again, and with data analysis and real-time utilization of these type of tools. The second home exchange market is huge, but it only works because it is shaped around like-minded people, and it uses technology to give people access if and when they want it on a large scale. You won't always get the place you want at the time you want, but you can get an alternative, and you're very similar as a person because you are in this club and you're exchanging because you own a very similar house somewhere. So you're no longer a foreigner to the other owner's character, mentality, value set. You're no longer a stranger in the house. You're kind of coming out of a similar environment and club because you own a similar property. So that's the exchange part of it. The fractional aspect of it goes one step back. The fractional aspect goes back to saying, okay, so Laurent had his vacation home now. The family had it forever. It's empty half the time, but it costs money to maintain it. But when they're there, they love it. It's perfect. And now a great opportunity comes up because a new market opens. You always wanted to visit. Because what happens with second home ownership, you have one home traditionally or two homes in a certain place. and you always go there because that home is in that certain place. But now you want to visit Dubai because everyone's talking about Dubai or Bali or Shanghai or the Caribbean or New York or whatever. And you have to make a decision. Do I go to my home? It's more or less free because I already have it and it's my vacation retreat. Or do I spend more money, even though I already have a perfectly fine place to go on vacation to, or I spend more money and go somewhere else to explore something else? Fractional ownership solves that problem. It gives you the opportunity to own a small piece of the house in France and only use it for the time that you want to use it. And with the same money that you would spend on the full house, you can buy 8 more fractions in 8 more markets if you want to. And then through the exchange platform, you can circulate around. And that's where the circular economy comes from, which helps reduce the overall amount of real estate that's required for the same amount of people to use it throughout the year. And it doesn't oversupply and over extend the tourism aspect. Another big thing we experience, I'm pretty sure in France is the same thing in Spain and everywhere in Europe this summer has been so far a big disaster with these popular vacation hotspots where because so much real estate, so much vacation real estate, luxury hotels, etc., has been built that the local population can no longer afford to live there, but you need them to work in the hotels. And that has, I'm sure you've seen in France as well, as we've seen on the news, been a big disruption where people have strikes and protests and whatever. They don't even want the tourists anymore, even though their location or their country lives off tourism, but they don't want them because it made their own life impossible. This fractionalization and exchange, I'm not saying saves everything, but has a positive impact to in that world of helping reduce the oversupply, the over tourism. It decentralizes everything, right? It gives people more choices, access to other places, more reasons to not just always overrun Mallorca for a certain period of the year every year, or Paris, or whatever it is. You want the tourism there, but you don't want too much of it. You want still the local population to be enjoying that they have tourism as a contributor to their GDP, but not to lose their ability to live in their own market. And with those tools, with those mechanisms, they are aspects. I'm not saying they're the savior, but they're aspects that help move in the right direction. And that's why we focus primarily on that. And we arrive at that conclusion because we can analyze the data. Again, AI is an optimizer in here. It allows us to find exactly which market, which type of asset, what is the tourism behavior, what problems does it create, what's the gap. All this data has become real time. And you can integrate it so well with prop tech through AI and other mechanisms and tools to create dynamic pricing, to the booking alone, the exchange of these empty weeks, days even, of secondary real estate. Without a smart booking system, it would almost be impossible to to utilize that inventory properly. And it reflects in pricing. It reflects in many aspects of the travel and tourism, second home, third home real estate world out there. The second part of it, if I may add to that real quick, is because you mentioned the tokenization that I spoke about earlier, is also an enabler, right? Because it is so accessible, it's basically a retail platform. It becomes a tool that gives developers and even the individuals that invest in it almost instant liquidity. Because before it would take months to get a loan, to get your equity, if not years, put together to build a project like that. If we can now do that through a tokenized infrastructure and platform and open it up to the entire world effectively for everyone to buy in and out and trade that on a secondary level, it becomes almost like stock trading in the end. You see what the value of this might be for you. You decide to buy the Pridium token or not, and you can trade in and out. And for the time that you hold it, you own a piece of the asset. You're part of this digital owners club, if you will, in fractional vacation real estate. and you get certain benefits depending on how big or small your share is that you can then utilize within that environment. So it's both on the financial side as well as on the real estate side, a complete 360.
Yeah, I really love this discussion. I think it's we can have hours and hours of discussion on this
Certainly.
because it's full of information and insights, and I think it's so much actuality. I mean, it can be it's at the reach of everybody. Also, this fractional ownership, share leisure, owning a piece of real estate that you never be able to own by yourself, and the tokenization also makes a lot of sense. I love all this. But I mean, let's move on and let's talk about the future. Where do you see Predium going over the next few years?
Simply in that direction. I think in the end, it's going to be, like I said earlier, and I like to use this term, it's going to be a purpose tech company. It's going to be a company that combines fintech. Under fintech, I believe tokenized fractional real estate falls under the expression fintech, and prop tech. And when we combine that, like I said, it fulfills this purpose of sustainability, of accessibility, of liquidity, of the circular economy, of all the aspects we just discussed today. And I really see that the future to be. There's always going to be the human element, the advisory, the using experience, and of myself and my partners to put these things in words, in writing, in an analysis, in giving somebody the explanation. I mean, we spent a good hour here today to talk about it. That's still going to be important, no matter how much access people have to, ask ChatGPT all the questions or go on Instagram and look at a lot of pretty pictures and everything. To put it together and create the logic behind it and be able to communicate this and bring it, connect basically the dots between the end user, the investor, the developer, any other stakeholder, the governments, the authorities, the regulators, whoever is out there. I mean, it's fun to talk about tokenized fractional real estate until you turn one page and you look underneath and see what it requires to do it, and how very open this market still is in terms of the regulatory aspect, the technology aspect, like all these kind of things. So there's still work to be done, and this will always require the expertise, the experience, the global know-how, the connections, the relationships, and all these things we talked about.
Wonderful. If you could wave a magic wand and fix one thing about the industry today or tomorrow, what would it be?
It would simply be that we finally wake up and get away from the way of doing it the way it was done 50 or 100 years ago. Build more, get out of the linear approach. Start building more intuitively and smarter. And the only way we can do this is by looking at the behavior, because it's a very sad chicken and egg situation, right? If we just build more and people will follow around, but if we let people fully express themselves and really tell us what they want, we can build accordingly. They will still follow around, but now they follow around in a slightly different mechanism, which is already better aligned with what they wanted in the first place. And I think it will solve a lot of issues. Because there's many studies out there. We're working with some new interesting partners, which I can't really talk about here, but that are very, very focused on sustainable tourism and development. And there's so many studies done on with the generational shift that we have today in the world, on what the younger generations that are now growing up and now having more money, either inheritance or money they make on themselves or whatever, and use that for their travel, how they travel, what their value is. More and more people are looking at using trains, especially in Europe. That's why you see so many very cool kind of, Orient Express style historical trains coming back to life, where you can spend the night on the train and all that. So many more people are valuing the locations that they want to experience, not just by being a tourist going in, leaving, and not thinking about what that does to the city, to the place, but leaving it better than when they came. And it's related to the generational shift that we're seeing and the people that will be traveling in the next 100 years. So if we can wave my magic wand today, I would say we take the best, most usable things from the past, and apply it to the future, and listen to what the future is already telling us. The future is talking to us, which is our younger generations. When they tell us what they want, we have the data. Let's analyze it. Let's mix it up with what we know. How a hotel is built, or how real estate can be built to last long, or all these historic values. Let's put it together and let's create that new, very impactful, future-proof, data and results-driven, sustainable way of traveling and experiencing this world. And I do believe it will sustain us in the end. Not no matter how many people we put on the planet, but even with the number of people that we have and we're forecasted to have, it will still allow us to enjoy it and to make it work. And that would be my magic wand thing, just to build smarter.
Yeah, awesome. I love it. I always like to end with advice for someone listening today, maybe an investor, a founder, or a city planner. Um, what advice would you give them about embracing AI and data in real estates, and what mindset shift or first step would you suggest?
The main thing would be, I would say, think about how the technology can translate to value. Whatever that means, we can have a discussion about it, whether, scalability, the impact on regulatory frameworks, everything we're talking about, the adaptation of technology, software, of whether it's managing one building, whether it's influencing your decision making of urban planning, or of developing a new vacation resort area, or whatever it is. Allow Think outside the box a little bit, right? Allow the trends and the technology and everything that has come about to be used. I wouldn't say let it drive you, because I don't think it's advanced enough, and it advances extremely fast and in scary speeds. I get that. But it's probably not advanced enough to do it on its own. We still need our own human touch. And by human touch, I mean decades of experience, or combined centuries of experience in teams of people that have done this and made it their life mission. But my main advice would be, consider it, look at it, see what it can do, understand, learn, educate yourself a little bit, bring an expert on board, bring somebody in from the non-traditional world that knows something else better than you, which in this case the something else would be the technology, or the AI, or the financial tech, or the prop tech, or whatever. Bring someone, an expert in, even in one discussion, or on the team, or on an advisory board, or whatever it is, and have them be part of those conversations, because they think completely different. They're not locked in that box of ABC that we've done our whole life in one certain industry. Allow that influence, that impact, that intuition, that mindset to come in from the outside. Not necessarily let it drive or make the whole decision on its own. Do it collaboratively in your team, as you've always done, but bring that new way of thinking in. And the shift in mindset would be just to be open to that, just to explore it. The cost benefit out of that is going to be huge. It's going to be very, very favorable to do it than not to do it.
Beautiful. Martin, this has been fantastic. Thank you for being so open and about your journey, your insights, and even the challenges of building something new in this space.
Absolutely.
Uh, this is great for Fox who wants to learn more about you or Prediam. Where should they go?
They can visit us at prediam.com, prediam.com, or very simply send us an email at info@prediam.com. We're on LinkedIn, the typical platforms. We're not so much on Facebook and social media, because we're still a little bit more B2B than B2C at this point, but this will all change. Yeah, we look forward to hearing from anyone who has any more questions about that, anyone who might need our help or insight or expertise, or have just want to have a discussion.
Fantastic. I'll be the first one to come.
Thank
Uh,
you,
I,
Laurent. It's been a pleasure. Appreciate you having me on the show today.
Martin, it was great. Thank you so much. And that's it for today's episode of AI Interconnect. If you enjoyed it, share it with someone who is building the future, or better yet, someone who should be. And until next time, stay curious, stay creative, and keep building. Thank you.
Thanks.